Look, President Trump offered two scenarios for Iran, either deal or no deal. And if there is no deal, then he said he threatened with maximum pressure, something we saw under his first term. And he did succeed in squeezing Iranian oil exports to very, very low levels, but not to zero, even though he did say that he managed to squeeze them to zero. And he threatened that he's going to achieve that today. But actually, the Iranians have mastered the skill of evading sanctions. That said, Iranian oil export tripled under the previous administration. So squeezing Iran further and reducing their exports even to 500,000 barrels a day, that would take around 1 million barrels a day from the oil market. Now that by itself is going to add pressure on oil prices, but we have to take into consideration two things. One, the coming barrels to the market from OPEC Plus, and also the demand is not booming because of the tariff threats. So I don't see a major change in the currency that we are seeing if the maximum pressure ends up really being exercised on Iran.
Carol, it's Dan here joining the conversation. I wanted to ask you about some of the energy deals that we saw being announced during President Trump's visit to the region. The headline was good, the numbers sound big, but it seems as if some of these agreements actually lack a bit of detail here. So what did you make of that news?
Absolutely, Dan. I mean, we have very attractive headlines that capture a big achievement, but at the end, we are lacking the details and we don't know by when those deals are going to be concluded and when will all this money start to flow into the U.S. economy. So lots of details are missing, and we all know that the devil is in the details. And also the other thing, these are not new breakthrough deals, because U.S. American companies are no stranger to the Middle East, nor are Middle Eastern companies and their sovereign wealth fund strangers to the U.S. market. So in that respect, for me, it was more than the headline of the commercial figures of those deals. It was for me a reaffirmation of an important foreign policy aspect of the U.S. and the Middle East, that the U.S. and the Middle East relationship is going stronger and closer, because mind you, under the previous administration, it was a shaky relationship. But today, those deals reinforce the relationship between the U.S. and the Middle East for many years to come.
And Carol, I'm speaking to you today from an offshore energy facility in the Arabian Gulf, obviously a critical piece of energy infrastructure feeding the global markets and also attempting to help power the UAE economy. I'm curious to get a sense from you about what you make of this Make It in the Emirates initiative. Many countries have tried to localize manufacturing and failed. Do you think the UAE will be able to do any different?
It is an impressive step, and usually when we think about the oil and gas industry, you only think about the upstream exploration, the big names in the industry. We forget the whole supply chain entails thousands and thousands of players. And typically, as you rightly said, Dan, in developing countries particularly, despite the massive oil production and gas production, we see that the local sector, the local content is quite timid, either because of lack of expertise or because they are not internationally competitive enough. So it's really impressive to see the UAE, and under the leadership of ADNOC, especially in the energy sector, we see this kind of development, this kind of expertise, not only being developed in the UAE, but also producing such an impressive project. And so it's a positive step. I would like to see it more expanding, because that is what the UAE needs to diversify its economy, to widen the jobs opportunities available for its young population, and that should set also an example for other countries in the region to follow suit instead of relying only on international foreign expertise.
And of course, Carol, what we also see is this major initiative underway in the country, as you say, to firm up supply chains and to create local jobs. But what do you think this push for economic self-reliance actually says about the state of global supply chains today, particularly in the energy space? Obviously a clear concern.
Look, we can all aim to be independent of other countries, but at the end, this is not going to work. It is important to have local expertise, but it's not going to be enough to say that that will shield the country from all noises and developments in the global economy. Yes, we are seeing a bigger move towards deglobalization today, and so far the energy sector has been shielded from the vagaries and the severe aspects of the deglobalization trend. But at the same time, time, it is still a global industry, and it has its whole supply chain is not concentrated in one or two countries. So it is good to develop the local specificities, not only for the sector itself, but also for economic diversification, because you have to think about the transferability of skills, the creation of jobs, the support for SMEs in the country. But I wouldn't say that this is what it needed to shield ourselves from what's happening in global markets. I think the trend out there is much bigger than just a few changes. Let's say tariff policy is going to change the whole globalization trend.